Welcome back, Freedom fans. We are recording another episode of Vlog 41, and I'm Aaron Davis, president of Freedom Real Estate Group, here with Tiffany Biddle, our transaction coordinator. And we're going to talk today about the Ivan investor experience. And Tiffany is my guest for a reason, because you pretty much run that experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about what you do day to day. Let's start with that for those who don't know.
Yeah, so the transaction coordinator, I take a property from, contract is signed all the way to closing. I deal a little bit from at the beginning and a little bit at the end, but the bulk of my, my role is from contract to close.
Yeah, good. So obviously Tiffany was like the first person I went to as I'm starting to learn a little bit about what our investors go through. And then like a whole army of other people that got involved with us in this, right? Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the whole like Ivan investor experience. So Tiffany, what were your initial thoughts when we first began that whole project?
Yeah, initially I didn't even think we needed it. I was like, what are you talking about, this whole experience that, we sign the purchase agreement, we get to close, done. It's done. And then Aaron lays this all out on the wall, and all these people are in the room, and they're all pinning up things that they do that I didn't even know they're happening, because I'm just trying to, keep properties moving along, keep deals going. And so, my initial thoughts were, what is this?
Right,
what are we doing here? And it completely changed and ended up being a very productive and I think meaningful experience that we went through.
Yeah, what was the first aha for you? Like the first thing the moment when you realized something that was impactful for the first time?
I think the first aha for me was putting something that I had done for 3 years that had not changed on the board and seeing that's not right.
Okay.
You
had a realization that like something was messed up,
exactly.
or it was easy to improve.
We'd been doing it with, not thinking there's an issue because we're just go. And I saw it on the board and I said, that's wrong. And we fixed it. Mm-hmm. It's the first thing we fixed, was that, first intro email. Mm-hmm. And we shortened it down from 3 emails to 1. We, simplified it, and it worked.
Nice.
For the next 3, clients that we sent that out to, it started working, and we started seeing
that's cool.
The fruits of our labor right there. So that was very cool.
We're getting into a lot of the meat right away, but we should slow down, back up a little bit. So like, who is Ivan the investor? We keep talking about Ivan the investor or whatever. So I'll answer that question. I mean, Ivan the investor is a kind of a semi-fictitious persona that we've used to describe the typical person who buys a turnkey property from us, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was a bit of a negotiation right away. That was one of the first things we did, was say, okay, who is this person? What do they look like, sound like, act like? What do they value? What kind of things do they do professionally? What things matter to them? We decided to call him Ivan. I had actually had a conversation with somebody named Ivan not that long before that. So next thing you know, we're all talking about Ivan. But Ivan the investor is you. It's actually me too, right? And you had your own kind of like, thought process about who Ivan was, and then collectively we all had to kind of compromise and decide that this is the typical, set of characteristics for the person that's going through our process. And so the whole process was exactly that, just looking at everything we do from that customer's perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, you said you saw an impact. You started to see an impact with an email that we changed. How did you know it was working? Like, how did you, whatever that tweak that you made, like, how were you able to tell that it created a better experience?
Yeah. So right away, when a purchase agreement is signed and something is sent out that says, hey, here's the title company, here's your next steps, here's the property management, here's everything that you need. It was overwhelming, I think, for them. It was a lot of information. Okay. And so people were missing crucial steps, like send your earnest money in, introduce me to the lender. It was stuff that I was following up over and over, like, hey, did you do this? Did you do this? And kind of walking them through where we changed it. We completely revamped it. It's a step-by-step. Do this, do this, do this. Here's your action items. they're highlighted for you. You don't have to read all of this stuff. You can just look at it. And I did it. We sent it out to one client, and I said, we'll see how this goes, right? And he did everything that was on that list. And I thought, okay, maybe a fluke.
That was different. That was
maybe
unique.
Fluke,
Right.
Like he's just on the ball, right? He's ready to go.
Right.
We send it to another one, done. We
Really?
send it to another
Okay.
one, done.
Yeah, so I'm hearing this feedback for the first time. That's great.
It's fast. It's like what it's doing to my role is it's making my role, when I have all of this stuff, follow-ups, they're just less.
So,
and it's just people just on the ball right now because they see exactly what they need to do. So it was a really cool.
Well, and that's less emails, phone calls from you.
Yes.
Right. So what's really important, that's great when we make our own lives better, but when we make our customers' life better too.
Absolutely.
That's huge, right?
Yeah.
So if they're able to be clearly responsive directly to the thing, to engage in the next steps of a process that they've said they want to get into. Yeah. We've simplified their life, right? And I was part of that email redesign or whatever. I was in that conversation. So tell us a little bit about how many long hours of labor and hard work went into that. Like, how hard was that?
It really, honestly, it wasn't that bad. But we went. I know I sent you a draft. I was so proud of it. I said, I did it. I combined these. Look at it. It's done. And you were like, okay, cut it in half. Take out, take out half of the wording and do it again and do it again and do it again. And I was like, I can't even do it once. I think we did it 4 or 5 times. There were 4 or 5ve drafts in there.
10, 15 minutes into that, and maybe a couple of other folks did too.
Exactly.
So we're an hour into
It was maybe
a
an hour,
yeah.
right? Because we threw it in a shared Google Doc. We all just threw ideas in there. Boom, done.
Right.
We picked the best of the drafts, and like you said, obviously it helped my life, but it helped the investors as well because now I have time to have more fruitful conversations with them about other things versus just, hey, who's your lender? Hey, who's your lender?
Right,
there's
right.
It's just better, I think, all around. So
you said something to me at one point about, I just never looked at this. These are easy changes to make, and it's already making an impact. But so, tell me a little bit about that. Like, just expand on that. That process.
Yeah. Taking that email and making it just one easy to follow email was something that I have been so busy. I also deal with when we buy properties, and I work with our private money lenders, and I do all of this stuff in the beginning.
No shortage of things to fill your day.
Exactly.
Right?
So I'm bouncing around doing a million different things. So I can't look at what needs to be improved. I should. I would love to. I loved what we did, but I don't see those things. I don't see what needs to be improved. So, or if I do, I'm like, yeah, we should improve this. It's gone. I'm doing something else, right? So having that laid out and that dedicated time to let's look at all these pain points. What are they? How can we fix them? And just having the dedicated time to be able to actually know, okay, I do need to fix this. Let's put some time in. It didn't take that long,
right.
But when you're running around all day long, you can't see it. You can't see what needs to be fixed.
That's exactly right. That email was low-hanging fruit, right? It was one of 15 big friction points that we kind of identified as like, these are things that might slow down the process for Ivan. These are things that might confuse the next steps or, muddy the waters a little bit for Ivan, the investor. And so we identified all these friction points and then picked our low-hanging fruit, and that was one of them, and immediately it's having big impact. But obviously, there were a lot of people in that room,
yes,
both virtually and physically. That was an expensive meeting, right? Or series of meetings. It wasn't just the hour it took to tweak and redesign a template, an email that you send out all the time, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of hours and eyeballs and attention went into that hour of effort to figure out exactly what that is. So,
and you thought that was going to be one 1-hour meeting.
True.
I just want to make that note because it was 4 1-hour meetings.
That experience was really insightful to me because that was my freshman year, and I'm like, wow, there's a whole body of knowledge here. Like just what it takes to go through that process.
Right.
And so great design makes it really easy for the customer and really hard behind the scenes. So it didn't upset me too much
when
I realized how many transactions and handoffs and processes and faces and emails and logos and email signatures and stuff that went into it. But it was surprising to me how clear that all the friction points were, and how many things we kind of agreed like were worth digging into and improving.
Yes,
right?
yeah, and everyone had some input on there, and a lot more people gave input than I thought would have. So it was very cool.
I thought we would be able to knock out a to-do list in an hour.
Right. It was
5 hours
very
later.
cool. People were going back and forth about everything, and
Yeah. So what was there? Were there things that surprised you, that from the investor's experience, from Ivan the investor's experience? Were there things that you said, "Wow, I didn't realize he was experiencing this or she was experiencing this"? Was there anything that you were observing through the eyes of our customer that you kind of saw more clearly for the first time?
Yeah, I think the whole property management, that entire track that they take after they close,
Okay.
And what actually happens there, and how we're continuing to follow up with them at the same time that property management is, and that was
we're telling the story that we don't sit in the same building together.
Yes,
and we're not all sister companies working
Right.
together. Right. But in reality, we're all
I can
hand
run
in
down
hand.
the door to Chris's office if I need something, right? And we're looking like we don't, But yeah, I had no idea what was going on with IPM and what their property management process was. So
the integration piece was huge.
Yeah, it closes and it's done for me, right? So just seeing everything that continues going is really cool.
Yeah, that's such an interesting observation. So it's done for you because that's when you stop being engaged and involved. Like your help's not needed at that point.
Right.
But for Ivan, it's just begun.
Exactly.
Right. He just purchased this thing that now he lives with.
Yeah.
And so it's such a small, we each play such a small part in our customer's experience and journey that we don't just miss what each little interaction feels with. We miss what the entirety of their experience is. Right. Most of us don't see most of our customers' experience. So, yeah,
for me, it's, 30 days of closing. It's a big deal. It's the biggest deal for me. And it's
for them, it might be a
minuscule
lifetime.
in what they're going to,
it might be a lifetime of owning that asset in their portfolio.
Right.
Interesting. The surprise for me was seeing all of the faces, right? So we actually took pictures of everybody who interacted with Ivan the investor from the point they first hear about Freedom Real Estate and Turnkey to the point where they're integrated and we're delivering owner draws. We're delivering cash to them out of their cash flowing property, right? So it was interesting for me to see how many faces in our organization, our sister companies, and then our preferred providers like lenders and inspectors and stuff that we refer folks to.
Right.
There were so many that it was an aha moment to me that, wow, that's a lot of people to meet and to understand how they interact with each other. And so
to know who to go to for the right.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that still weighs on me. That's still on that list of 15
you're still
things.
Thinking about that,
right? That is not an hour-long email design that we tweaked and fixed.
Right.
That's a lot of hands that need to be in there doing important things.
Yeah.
But it's potential confusion, right?
Right.
So those are friction points that we're digging into, and hopefully by the time we do our follow-up episode in the podcast, we'll have more content on that because we've got a list and we're continuing to work through it.
Yes.
So that's cool. What do you think, Tiffany, like when you look at the next hill to tackle or whatever, what do you think we could still improve for Ivan the investor in that experience?
Well, you touched on one of the things is just who to go to. Who do I talk to when I need, another thing that I think we can still improve is making sure that it's well understood that we are one company. We are all incorporated together, IPM Freedom, through the life of your property. You still have us too.
That's right.
So I think that those are a couple of things that we can still improve.
Bulldog came to mind too, because now as we're managing properties and a tenant turns, we have a go-to renovations company that actually executes the renovation, the rehabs when we buy turnkey properties, rehab them and sell them to investors. We now have, a renovations organization we know and trust. We know their rates are great. We know their quality is great. And we know they show up. That's the biggest thing these days, right?
Right.
We know they show up. And so that's such a huge asset to be able to commit to our ongoing ownership, right?
Yes.
To the investor who stays in that property for a lifetime or whatever, that their property manager literally sits right down the hall from the renovations company that helps them turn that property.
Yes.
Right. And so anyway, the integrations piece is a big deal. And making sure our investors understand how closely we work hand in hand, buying properties, rehabbing properties, selling those properties, then managing and renovating, and upkeeping those properties. We're all like literally sit here together.
Yes.
And if we're not all in this building or whatever, we're all part of the sister companies or whatever, the family of companies.
And we're all mixed together in the building. I mean, it's not even, here's a section of the building that's Bulldog. Here's a
Right. That's right.
I'm next to somebody in the acquisitions team and then next to somebody who does marketing. Like it's
That's
awesome.
Such a huge asset to that investor to know that all those solutions are right there, working hand in hand, to alleviate the concern that those things are disjointed is where we need to do some work.
Right.
Perception is reality sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've got my projects too. We talked a little bit about like the way we do surveys and ask for feedback and that kind of thing. Kind of integrating, clarifying that is a big thing on my to-do list. Simple things like email signatures have a big impact because they create clarity, right?
Right.
So we'll be talking more about this, obviously.
Awesome.
So what else? You had asked. Well, two things come to mind that we didn't get into. One, kind of painting the picture of what this, mapping Ivy and the investor's experience was about. Tell us a little bit about what that actually looked like physically. What was included? You referenced all the stuff on the board or whatever. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we had, we all came in and Aaron had put blue tape up on the walls, and he had, one big long horizontal line and a bunch of slashes kind of through it.
Yeah.
Talk with your hands on these things. We had big, slashes, and then we had printed off every interaction that we have with our investors. So, introductory emails to our clients, a call that's been scheduled, just anything that we could print out or just write, this is what happens here. Mm-hmm. And we took tape and we taped everything to the wall in different sections. Like this happens at the beginning, this happens here, at this step, at this step, at this step. Property management, I said the property management track went down and around over here. And then we took our pictures and we taped them up on the wall with everything that we are involved in. If we are talking to the client at that point, or if we are being introduced or whatever it is, I think there was a section that had like 4 or 5 people just taped up there. Yes. At the same time, yeah. So we taped our pictures up there. We taped everything that was, that we could see as an interaction. Mm-hmm. And then we took Post-it notes and we said, this is a friction point. This is a friction point. This is confusion. This could be confusing. This could be confusing. And we went through and we did all of those. And then we just sat down and we talked through, we talked through this process, and that board stayed up. We wanted it to stay up until today, but I think Aaron got stressed out about it. He tore it all down. He was done with it, but it was on the board or on the wall for weeks. Yeah. And everyone joked, did you find the fugitive? Right. Right. It looked like it looked like a manhunt or something, So, but it was really cool. It took up an entire wall in our training room.
I don't think we're done with it exactly, but we're done with kind of mapping out what that process was. Yes. And kind of who's involved in it. I called all those things artifacts, right? It's every email signature, every handoff, every document, every web page we point somebody to, every person they talk with, all the different things that are involved, right? But we're definitely not done solving those problems. There's friction points, and we use red sticky notes or whatever. Yeah. We got a long list of them, and some of them are low impact, some of them are big impact. And then, I referred to return on effort, right? Like we want to do the things that are easiest to fix, and that email, boom, an hour of effort. We've already saved all the time we put into this whole process. Yes. For Ivy and the investor, right? Collectively, the handful of buyers who have been engaged since then, we've already saved all the time we put into it. Yeah. And so the rest of it is just, it's gravy on the.
Yeah.
It's gravy. So, okay, cool. Well, we'll talk a little bit more in the podcast about other outcomes that we're chasing, improvements that we're making. But I think the moral of the story is that we're listening. A lot of these things we know because we have been listening.
Right.
What we did was we just tinkered with an approach to applying all those inputs that we received over the period or whatever into kind of designing intentionally what that journey is for the buyer.
Right.
So anyway, I appreciate your
Yeah.
help and leadership in pushing out some of those outcomes.
No problem.
Anything else you want to add or thoughts or questions or whatever?
No, I don't think so.
We'll get into it more,
covered
obviously.
it all. Yeah.
We'll get into more of the content and the things that we're changing and the processes and the impact for Ivan when we do our podcast next time. So in the meantime, thanks everybody. Invest smart.
Live happy.
All right, let's do it.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions and information on this show are not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss.